just to let people know, we're having council arrive in or around 7 o'clock. So I'm hoping that we can pause if necessary at that time to go into non-public rather than having council wait around, and then we would begin public again if we're at a good breaking point, certainly. All right. We're going to first go through and sign the payroll. So for the period ending, we have the period ending 6/17. Don't know where the period is prior to that. Oh, we signed last week, that's correct, okay. So for the period ending 6/17, we have payroll in the amount of $40,510.49. We have payroll taxes of $10,090.18. There's accounts payable in the amount of $80,998.43. There was a payment to Swayze in the amount of $233,856.37. Payment to New Hampshire Retirement in the amount of $64,982.29. So if everyone is okay with that, I would accept the motion.
Moved.
The second?
Aye. Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next on the agenda is reviewing and approving the consent agenda. The consent agenda has public minutes from May 20th, which we had tabled at the last meeting. There are also public minutes from the June 3rd meeting as well. We did receive a request which will be highlighted in the May 20th minutes from Michelle Sidowit, adding the highlighted portions in the minutes. So if I looked at those highlighted portions, they seemed relatively innocuous to me. So if people are in agreement with the 5:20 minutes, and I know there was other discussion last time because they were tabled. So I'll at least take a motion and then we can have further discussion.
Did you all get a copy of those beforehand?
The 20th?
Yeah.
No, I did not get a copy of the 5:20 minutes beforehand. I had asked Jillian to put
Okay.
June 3rd beforehand.
So there's, okay.
The 5:20 minutes,
I'm going to
though,
make a motion that we table it again because I didn't have a document to compare to.
they're the same minutes that we had last time, which were the 5:20 minutes,
Right.
other than the highlighted revisions, which are fairly
Right, but I
modest.
didn't have a copy of that until just now.
Didn't you have the 5:20 minutes from the
No,
last
because
meeting?
they were never sent to us.
I thought the 5:20 minutes we had from last time.
They were,
They were in the packet,
they were in
Yeah,
the
they were in the
packet, but they
packet.
weren't.
and then the June 3rd meeting, you asked that they be sent out beforehand. So
Okay.
that's why we didn't get the 20th beforehand, because we decided on the 3rd.
Do you want to take a minute to
do.
read them now?
So the reason that I tabled them before is because I wanted to have them in front of me so I could watch the video at the same time. So I'm guessing you don't want to wait for that.
Okay, is there a second of this motion to retable the 5:20 minutes?
I'll second it. Just not a huge deal.
It's
Yeah.
really not.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Taking out the 5:20 minutes, I'll take a motion to accept the June 3rd minutes with the recreation checks and as well as the building permits that have been signed.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So I'll pass around the consent agenda for everyone's signature.
Just cross
which
out the,
will be tabled on the 5/20.
is one of these signatures yours?
Nope.
Okay, and if, as long as everyone's able to multitask, we may as well start with the next discussion action item. We have folks here from the police department to talk about the New England Dragway.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, can we back up a second? Part
Sure.
of building permits is a request for.
Yes,
What?
yeah, there's a request for abatements, and is that what you're referring to?
Nope, there was a request to change the time of payment for impact fees. Andrea can explain it.
You wanted to, this gentleman, move him up. The gentleman here for the, he would like to.
That would be part of Build B,
It's-
right?
Building permits, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right after the minutes.
yeah, so it's, Mr. Bailey has asked that he pay his impact fees before the CO is issued, opposed to upfront before the building permit's issued.
Okay, do you want to come up and address that? Just have a, yeah, have a seat either way and just turn on the mic. Yeah, if you could.
Just state your name and
My,
your address, please.
my name's Al Bailey. I live in 5 Brimstone Circle in Newton, New Hampshire, but we're building 2 homes on Tanya Lane, number 1 and 3. 3 is actually for our daughter and her husband and her family to live in. Number 1 is going to help try to offset it because it's very expensive for people to have houses. So carrying costs kind of hard to do when we're trying to help them out. So if we could postpone the impact fee till the time of occupancy permit versus time of getting the building permit, it would be quite helpful for us. So that's what we're asking for. I mean, I'm not looking to get rid of them. I'm just asking for postponement of when it gets paid, right before the occupancy permit, that's all. I mean, 2 houses comes out to almost $20,000.
For both?
No, yeah, for both. Yeah. So, I mean, it's like I said, it's almost 20 grand between the 2 of them. Like I said, we're building the second one really to just whatever we make off that to offset some of her building expenses so they can afford to live in Brentwood.
Okay.
They are business owners in town. They're not gonna get a occupancy permit unless they pay, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve that.
Is there, and did the planning board have anything to say about this?
Yeah, is that, Mr. Kennedy, if you don't mind approaching, is that in your experience within the planning board's jurisdiction for consideration?
Well, I would say that my name is Mark Kennedy, Land Use Administrator for the Town of Brentwood. I would say that is purposeful as why is we collect the fees when we collect them. It comes down to a matter of enforcement action. So if someone moves into a home, are you prepared to throw them out if they don't pay the impact fee?
Well, they can't without an occupancy permit.
Well, you can.
You can, and
But you
that's
physically
exactly
can.
why we collect them when we collect them. And I would caution this board upon this ground, when you do for one, you must do for all. So if a developer comes into this board and says, I would like to pay all them when the occupancy permit comes up, are you going to grant that as well? I don't see the special exception here. And when we look, take a zoning board of adjustment, hardship cannot be monetary.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I do have some concern about the potential precedent, and I understand what you're trying to do, and it's certainly sympathetic.
I had spoken to the previous building inspector, and I was led to believe at that point in time that they had already made that exception. Two builders in town that had paid a couple, and that because of the side, they did allow that to happen. You know, that was some time ago when early stages of purchasing the property, that I was just looking into the expenses and so forth, but I was led to believe that that had already been allowed.
Is that something that you're aware of, Mr. Kennedy?
I would have to look for specific examples and go back and look at the records. But without specific examples, I just caution, I give this board a word of caution when you do that.
Yeah.
And are you prepared to chase people? There's a reason why we collect them when we collect them.
When, I'm trying to understand what you mean, like chase people, because they couldn't occupy until, you know, they had a certificate of occupancy, or am I not understanding?
Yes,
that?
they can. I mean, they can physically move in.
Well, it could be squatting, yeah.
Yeah, and that's,
Well,
I guess
it's their
that's what,
property and it's their house. It's not
Yeah.
squatting. It's
Well,
now you have,
yeah.
when I say, are you prepared to take that action to get the impact fee? Because that's the enforcement action that you're going to have to take. Right now, you don't have to enforce anything because they don't get a building permit until they pay it.
What's the lag time that you were thinking between the building permit and the certificate of occupancy?
I'm hoping that they'll be in by October.
So the lag time is only a few months?
Correct.
And why?
It's just carrying the expense, that it's, you know, trying to minimize as much as we can, that's all. I mean, building two houses, you get better costs on labor, you get better costs on lumber, so I mean, it's, you know, we're just trying to mitigate the expense for our daughter, that's what we're working at, you know, because if you borrow the money to carry it all that time, there's more expense.
I understand there's the carrying cost, I get that. Yeah. Well, do we want to have further discussion in light of, you know, that? I mean, I am concerned about setting a precedent, you know, to the extent that, you know, we're not, at least, we don't have evidence of one having been set before, so that does give me cause for concern
Can we
without.
push this to the next meeting so that we can investigate it further? I mean, there's some people that we should talk to about it.
So the next meeting would be July 1st.
Well, I'll make a motion to
Yeah,
table this until the,
Yeah, or motion to withdraw
Or-
the motion. I think that's-
withdraw the motion, right? Okay.
Which I think you can do, you know, and we don't need to vote on that. So the motion that you would put forward is
I'll withdraw it, yeah.
withdrawn.
Yep.
can somebody reach out to Kip?
We just need to do a little bit more.
Oh, no, I understand. I understand the thing about the precedent,
Yeah.
but I mean, the only reason I'm here asking is you know, had been informed and, you know, that had been allowed in the past, generally on a bigger site where someone had, you know, 10 houses and, you know, they paid 2 and said, hey, geez, you know, I got another 8, it's killing me, you know, but I understand.
So we'll look into that and absolutely, you know, if you can come back on July 1st, our next meeting, we'll have answers for you.
All right, I
Yeah.
appreciate that, thank
Yeah.
you.
And can't make any promises.
Nope, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
The planning board is meeting on the 26th at 4 o'clock.
I think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Because you guys do have, you know, jurisdiction over impact fees and how those are set. And in terms of the timing, I'd certainly, I
No,
think
the-
there are some folks who are well qualified, you know, on the planning board to weigh in on that as well. So I appreciate that.
We are not the board of authority to who and when and where we collect them.
Understood. Understood. Okay. So back to where we were on the agenda then. I think we're now dealing with the first action item, which would be the New England Dragway.
I won't take it personal.
Just make a note that we have to loop back to approving the veterans credits.
Yes.
All right.
Maybe we could do that after the
That's fine.
non-public, yeah.
Good evening. I've asked my two supervisors to be here just to chime in as well, should there be additional questions or what have you. Couple things. I had sent the board an email a few weeks ago expressing some concerns with the operations and just the events at New England Dragway and issues that we've been running into. In addition to that, I've tried to work alongside of them to remedy some of these issues, and it just doesn't seem to be working by any means. So I think it's important that both the board and the public kind of just be aware. It was brought up last time that the president of the Dragway filed a complaint against me. I didn't have a lot of time to answer to that one, but I do have some facts about that. And there.
And I don't mean to butt in, but just to kind of fill in a little bit, if you want to sort of detail what the nature of that complaint was.
So the nature of the complaint was that Brentwood police are stopping vehicles directly in front of the business. Also, people are pulling into the parking lot that we're attempting to stop, whether it be on North Road or on Route 27. Unfortunately, we don't dictate where people stop. Once the blue lights come on, people take it upon themselves if they pull into a parking lot or a driveway. Sometimes they think they're home free. You know, the Dragway considers that area pretty minimal for residential. I disagree with that because North Road, there are a number of neighborhoods off of that. You have Windsor and Abbey, you have Washington, you have Three Ponds right down the way. So there are, it's pretty heavy residential. But to start with the season, some issues that we've run into, going back to, they had an event on 5/11, which was just, it was 4/25, which was just one of their normal Friday night events. Epping PD had the detail in there. We ended up having both of our duty units get tied up there on a call. I did get a thank you letter from the captain of Epping PD. In his thank you letter, he states that the track saw an unusually large crowd. As the night progressed, he became overwhelmed with calls for service. While he was engaged in a serious incident involving a firearm, both Corporal Saltzman and Officer Kelly responded quickly to an assault, which was located on the other end of the track. So that was just a normal Friday night event. We were tied up with that for a while. Obviously, it took both of our duty units out of service for a bit. On top of that, I have call logs just for the increase in amount of traffic that we see and cars that we stop. We're not stopping for petty things. We're not stopping for the uninspecteds or the unregistered. We're stopping for egregious offenses during these events. You're stopping for the reckless stops of people blowing through stop signs, of people almost causing accidents. It's by no means is it, petty by any means. And yes, that area does draw an increase in traffic, so it is enforced. Back on 5/4 Import Face-Off, that was what led to their complaint because one of the vehicles that was stopped ended up in the parking lot before the event really started at 8:30 in the morning. When we had our preseason meeting, which Andrew and Letty were a part of, we talked to them and said, yep, we'll make a conscious effort to not stop in the parking lot, and if we do, we'll make sure it was out of the way. I was working with a neighboring chief at that event, and we both confirmed that that stop was not in the way. That was the only stop that made it into the parking lot that day. And usually the track immediately comes out, records the stops, take pictures, usually sends them to the board. Fast forwarding now to the 603 event on 5/16. This is where...
Sorry, Chief, you said, so we were talking about 5/4 and there was a stop, and you said that when there is a stop, they usually take pictures and send them to the board?
Yeah.
Which board?
I believe you guys.
Oh, okay. Have we seen?
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Thanks for clarifying. So fast forwarding now to the first 603 event, which was on 5/16. This is where we really started to see a lot of the issues. Lately, the issue is underage consumption of alcohol, which I think everyone in this room can agree that it doesn't lead to anything good. So again, I have the call logs based off the cars we see. I have call logs stating, complaints for the Dragway. Motor vehicle complaints. Usually if it's a 603 event, you can tell it's going to the Dragway. It's usually a truck with wide tires, lift kits, all that stuff. That night, as a result, we ended up making numerous arrests. I want to say 5 or 6 arrests. You guys remember? The first 603 diesel event, it was 5 arrests that night. It was all underage kids in alcohol complaints, whether they're in their cars, whether they're drinking in the parking lots, whether they're getting behind the wheel. These are the issues that we're starting to see. Thank you. Also that night, there was a kidnapping call where a 16-year-old female was so drunk, she got into a complete stranger's vehicle and took off. Her friends couldn't find her. They ended up finding her up in the Lakes region. And the operator of that vehicle and owner of that vehicle had a warrant for his arrest as it was. So Nationals, that's usually the big event. That's the one we put the traffic warning out, say, hey, just avoid the area. We partner with DOT on that meeting to set up a traffic pattern. On May 20th, they had a pre-event traffic meeting. Brentwood PD is in charge of directing traffic at these events. Brentwood PD was not invited to that traffic meeting. I tried, I have emails from them and stuff. I worked along one of the DOT reps.
So just to clarify, Brentwood PD was not invited to the meeting to discuss
Traffic that we
in Brentwood.
direct. Yep, on
Do you know-
27.
Was there a reason given why?
Nope. And it's going to lead to my next point. When I was talking to DOT, they also were curious why we weren't at that meeting. DOT sets up the cone package, and then we just go through the motions. We talk about what's going to happen if there's a med flight issue, what's going to happen if we got to get emergency services in there, what the overall traffic plan is going to be. In an event that large where Sunday alone attracted 55,000 people, you're going to run into some hiccups. I understand that. But to just be left out of that meeting was, pretty annoying, if you will. They also did pre-traffic meetings each day of the event. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we were not included on the one on Friday at the event. We were included on the one Saturday because I believe Sergeant Spitaleri said something. And then I was included in the one on Sunday because the DOT said something. So it wasn't even their intention to have us be a part of the traffic meeting for this event. Now, mind you, again, an event this size, it's going to cause traffic problems. I think it's important that everyone has a partnership with this, and you'll see it. We saw it. Their lots got full. Urco Road, which is the side road that goes up there, that goes up to all their parking lots, was complete bumper to bumper. North Road in 27 was a complete standstill. We had people yelling at us as if it was our fault. It was like that because all their lots were full and they had to turn around all the cars on Urco Road and get them back on 27 to send everyone down to Star Speedway. I kept in constant communication because they had exit 8 closed that day with DOT, and watching cars backed up down North Road, I was just keeping him informed that they were probably going to have to extend the closure of exit 8. Luckily, they didn't. But, again, constant communication. There was a lack of communication coming from the dragway itself. I did offer the individual who's in charge of the security and maintenance there, I offered to get with him for a post-event debrief, which is pretty popular, to do after any big event. I didn't hear back. And then, just for the sake of time, because I know we have legal coming, this last Friday night's event on 6/13, involving 603 diesel was a mess, to say the least. The previous 603 diesel event, we start our detail at 5 p.m. and officers were already caught off guard with that one. This one, I suggested that we started off at 5 p.m. The dragway assured me, no, start time is going to be 6 p.m. for you guys. I expressed my concerns in emails saying that last thing I want is an accident at the major intersection. I never got a response after that. So we started at 6 p.m. and sure enough, we had an accident just right around 5 p.m., which impacted traffic coming off 101 and on North Road.
Chief, sorry.
Yep.
What time does that event start? It
4
starts
p.m.
at 6? Oh, it starts at 4.
Yep. And I had sent a screenshot to the track as well because they're advertising as a start time at 4 p.m. So understandably so, people are going to show up probably starting at 4 p.m. Yeah. And so it was kind of beyond me why we were starting at 6 p.m., but I tried to work with them and I gave them that one. And unfortunately, it bit all of us with the amount of traffic. I had Sergeant Spitaleri working a speed enforcement grant that day, which is through the state. He had to actually stop his grant at one point because traffic was so backed up. The state does not like it when you get involved in other tasks as a police officer. If you're on a grant, they don't want you answering calls for service because it's grant money, unless it's life or death, or if it's a motor vehicle complaint, that's something that you can do, but your sole purpose is to enforce motor vehicle laws. They prefer it on state roads, but they open up town roads as well. So the fact that he had to stop his grant, direct traffic that was beyond backed up, Sarge, what would you say, back past the off ramps? Over the bridge?
I can confirm that because I went to get ice cream around that time.
And it's my understanding that 101, the westbound side was also backed up. These issues could have been alleviated had we just had the details started earlier. We would have noticed the backup. We would have just stopped 27 and flagged traffic to get that traffic alleviated. That night also yielded a lot of activity for us. We had 3 patrol units on, and I had another DUI grant on that night, against state DUI grant. And our units were tied up with 6 arrests. We had an underage DUI that just about drove through the front gate, got out of his car, openly admitted that he had too much to drink. They were coming from the dragway. We had multiple other arrests involving juveniles who were obviously too drunk to function. And it's becoming a problem now. So my fear is that the current management of the dragway has fostered this environment that's allowing these kids, I don't think they're getting served there, but they're allowing kids to bring this alcohol in, and then we're dealing with the repercussions. It's tying up our units and everything else.
I do think we need to be careful about our wording. I don't think that they are allowing kids to be in there drinking. I think we need to be careful of that. I'm sure that there are underage kids sneaking stuff in.
Sure.
But I guarantee you that the dragway is not allowing it to happen.
I don't think they're allowing it. I think that the environment, though, is fostering it, and that's my opinion.
Yeah.
Can you speak to, I mean to cut you off.
Yeah, that's
so
okay.
If you're done.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I know there was a complaint made to the Liquor Commission. Do
Yep.
you want to address that?
So we reached out to Liquor. Liquor is a state agency, much like state police or Fish and Game. They specialize in alcohol offenses. They're the ones that control, obviously, liquor licenses. They do investigations. I know, for an example, those that read about the young kid that drowned in Raymond, they were a part of that investigation because they found the store that sold the alcohol to kids. So we had reached out to them for assistance because, quite frankly, we're maxed out on our resources to deal with these things. So to bring in a state agency to say, hey, help us out, these are the issues we're seeing, they were more than happy to assist us. I know that they were within the confines there, and they also came across a number of juveniles drinking on the premises and, again, too drunk to function. So we involve them just like any other state agency for additional resources. Does that answer that question?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you want to, yeah.
I will go on record and say that I understand. I don't. I do wish the dragway was here because this seems like it's one-sided.
Yeah, I think they'll have an opportunity to certainly
I
present.
just want to go on record for that.
So just to put in the seriousness of it, there's a case law out of Kingston, New Hampshire, called Weldy v. Kingston. Essentially, what used to be back in the 80s was you'd get pulled over underage, have alcohol on you, the cops would take the alcohol, send you on your way. Kingston did just that. These kids went out, got more alcohol, drove. I think there was 1 or 2 deaths as a result of it. So the point being is, and then the town, the police department was all sued. The town had to pay out. So the point of calling liquor is that we know that there's an underage drinking issue, particularly at these events. We know they exist. Yeah, we can stop them with DUIs and whatnot. But if that's all we do, and we don't address the fact that we know where the alcohol is being consumed and that we do nothing about it, what's inevitably going to happen is a kid is going to leave the 603 Dragway event, and they're going to crash into a tree, and they're going to die, and then the town's going to get sued, and the police department's going to get sued, and the officers on duty are going to get sued. And then everyone's going to be hooting and hollering that, oh, the PD knew about it and didn't do anything about it. So that's the seriousness of it. We're not out there just giving everybody a hard time.
There's a
Serious,
due
this is
diligence.
serious issues.
Yeah.
There's a due diligence requirement under, the Weldy.
And this is a great community. I've been here for 3 years. I've enjoyed, I found myself in this role as the chief I guess, timing. But I also, myself and everyone downstairs took an oath to serve this town, and we're gonna do just that. You know, we're going to address criminal behavior, we're going to address crime trends. You know, it falls back to the broken windows theory, if anyone knows anything about that. You're going to police the areas that have problems. You know, it's prevention through presence. We're not, excuse me, we're not targeting anyone, we're simply targeting crime. And I worry about these issues with the community, seeing what's coming out after one event. I fear for, you know, people that live off North Road. You know, if you want to go walk your dog or, you know, be outside in your front yard, it's tough. You get these cars hammering down. We've had cars that go into these events doing 75 to 90 miles an hour down North Road in front of the county complex. So we are out there enforcing it. We will never turn a blind eye to it. We, you know, will continue to enforce it. You know, now I worry about the kids of this community, not just Brentwood, but knowing that this is happening within there. I feel as though it's my duty to, one, bring this to light and to just continue to protect this community. I think it's important. I think these issues need to be voiced and they need to be heard. I want a partnership with the Dragway. I am happy to help them assist with these issues in any way. But, you know, I need that desire as well. And over the years, we have given quite a bit to them. You know, we used to have, before my time, they used to run 6 to 8 detail officers for these events. We've cut it down to 4 just on traffic because it was an expenditure for them. And they were, you know, at the time said that they were hurt and stuff like that. We've agreed to not bill for every cruiser that's out there. You know, I've amended my detail policy for them. That way, if there's a rain out and they got to cancel the event rather than 24 hours notice, I was willing to meet them with a 3-hour notice and not bill them for the event like any other contractor. So I try to work with them. I've tried to do it, but I feel like I get constant pushback from them. And the one thing that I can't do is truly I can't sacrifice public safety. And I won't sacrifice public safety. I think I've made that pretty clear in previous meetings. I'm very fortunate for the officers downstairs. They are putting the hard work in, knowing the pushback that we're getting. You know, we're going to continue to put the hard work in, again, because it comes down to public safety.
What's on tap for the rest of the season?
I'd have to look at the schedule. One of their major events, which was Street Outlaws, is getting, it got canceled and they're looking to reschedule it. So I'm sure they're going to have to come to you guys for the approval because it goes outside the normal schedule. You know, I'll be honest with you, I will be hard pressed. I know it's the board's decision, but for future permits, I'd be hard pressed to give it a blessing based, you know, off the stance of the police department. And again, I want a business to succeed. I want every business to succeed. I feel as though we have a great partnership with every business in town. Certain businesses that have summer functions and have big functions, they will come to us. They'll ask us for our opinions. They're happy to work alongside of us, to partner with us. You know, they'll ask if they need a detail here, need a detail there, or functions in town. You know, Peach Project, anything at the rec center. I feel like we're always involved, and I've never seen this kind of pushback.
Do you know when the last event is of the season?
October. Was it?
October 31st is usually the last.
Yeah.
Okay. And how many approximate
That we have left?
events? Yeah.
For us, I mean, they have events every weekend, but ones that we do, it's probably eight left.
I don't know if there's discussion amongst the board. Was there anything else, Chief?
You guys have anything?
Chief, did you see this letter that we got?
I did.
So my thought there, but I'm willing to you know, hear others. I think that puts things into the legal framework with regard to that letter, and I think it ought to be something discussed in non-public because it does put things in legal theater, in my opinion.
Well, it did come from a law firm.
It did.
Oh, absolutely about this. I'm talking, yeah, about this letter, but
Right. So my thought was that that should be discussed in
that's fine. He wasn't on the email, so I just want to make sure he'd seen
Yes.
it.
I, for one, just want to say thank you for taking the safety of our community so seriously. So not only you, Chief, but
your entire department, so your whole team. Thank you guys for doing what you do.
Can I ask a question? So between those two events, there were over 10 arrests, I think?
Correct.
6.
Yep.
Did you receive any complaints? Like, did those people complain about how they were treated or where they were pulled over or?
No, quite frankly, and I think even I put her on the spot. So Daphne is our kind of in-house bail commissioner. I approved arrest number 107 today, so 107 arrests, 107 people we put handcuffs on. I have yet to receive one complaint about an arrest this year.
You mean total, not just for
Yeah, not just the dragway, yeah,
Okay.
but that includes, you know, the 10 plus from the dragway.
Yeah.
As even them I haven't received a complaint about. So I'd like to think that we're treating people with, well, I know we're treating people with respect and dignity in that aspect.
I can tell you that please, come on up. Absolutely.
That's how I interpret it, yes. I wish I had an answer for you.
Are there any other public comments? I would just say I did see Officer Gagnon down there during a very difficult traffic event. I thought that, you know, very admirable job, and, you know, appreciate what you guys are doing, you know, out there in a difficult and tough situation.
It's tough, yeah.
So you will be, I'm sorry.
Nope, go, it's okay.
You will be here for non-public.
I am here for the remainder of the night, my friend.
Okay, okay, because we do, I think, have some, you know, discussion in non-public that is pertinent with that regard. Plus, there was another matter in non-public as well.
Yep.
That you'll need to be here for, so.
Yeah, and I'd just like to go on record. I've been working, Chief, with you and the Dragway. It's been very difficult and frustrating on my end because I can't seem to find a solution. But I will say that after the first 603 event, I came to the second 603 event to observe traffic and to also observe, you know, inside the Dragway. You know, you guys are doing a great job. I stand behind you 100%. I think that, you know, when people break the law, they should be held accountable. You know, I observed a lot of traffic, you know, on that event, on all the events. And, you know, you guys are working hard to try and make sure that it flows smoothly. You know, there are some people that just ignore and you know, disobey. And I think that, you know, like Daphne pointed out, you know, we want safety first and foremost.
My goal.
Yeah. So that being said, I do think that, you know, non-public, but I do think that we owe it to the Dragway to bring this up again so that they have an opportunity to speak as well. It's unfortunate that they're not here tonight to also, you know, be in this discussion. That's all.
It is, although I suspect, based on, you know, what's already been alluded to, that this might end up in, you know, non-public.
I understand. I understand. Yep.
So, having said that, was there anything else you wanted to bring to our attention, Chief?
I don't think so. That's all I got for you.
Okay, thank you
Still
very much.
non-public. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So, thank you, folks. Yep. Next on the agenda is 3 ponds. There are some issues with regard to releasing a bond and also, I guess in conjunction with that, adopting a public roadway at the three ponds. So is there someone here to speak to that? Okay.
Mark Kennedy, Land Use Administrator, Town of Brentwood. So I've created a packet for you, or there should have been. It was a letter from Chris Raymond from TEC. I would vote on them separately. So which one would you like to do first?
We can do the bond.
Sure. Yep. There's a letter of recommendation from TEC. And the date that we, as the planning board, voted to recommend the release of said bond.
Okay. And that recommendation was based upon?
The site walk and the letter from Chris Raymond of TEC.
And just so everyone understands, the release of the bond, which now brings amount held down to zero, means that everything has been complied with in terms of the site plan at that
Correct.
locale.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The second one you're going to find is the adoption of the Three Ponds roadway.
Can you speak to that?
And the letter from Chris Raymond recommending the adoption of that roadway. And the planning board did do its due diligence of a site walk and duly voted to recommend to the select board that you adopt it as a public roadway.
And I'm assuming as part of that due diligence, there was confirmation and verification that the roadway met our standards.
By our town's engineer.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm a no.
The motion.
There's always
passes.
one.
It's okay.
I
allowed.
mean, you know why. I can say it out loud if you want.
The motion passes. Okay. Next, as a discussion item, this was raised by Ms. Bedard and wanted to have a discussion with regard to agenda items and select board policy with regard thereto.
Sure. Whenever that was, that last meeting or last meeting? You had said that as the chair, you get to decide what is on the agenda. And so I thought if that's going to be how we're going to operate, we should put that into policy.
Okay. And I don't know if that was exactly my words. If I, said that, then, that may have been a misspeak on my part. But in looking at the select board meeting policy that's in effect, paragraph 5 indicates that agendas scheduled by the town administrator will usually be established on a first come, first served basis. When requesting time on the agenda, a person shall notify the town administrator by 12 noon on the Friday preceding the meeting and state the general nature of the meeting subject and the approximate amount of time required. There is, under the duties of select board chair at paragraph 3A1, which provides that the select board chair shall maintain order and control of the agenda. So my interpretation of that is while most things, all things get passed through Andrea, there may be something that I see that I feel is not pertinent or relevant or timely for purposes of the agenda, and I think that the chair does have that within its control. And then there's also, and I don't have it in front of me, but I know there's a procedure for overruling the chair as a point of order if the feeling is that the chair has done something inappropriate, and I'm certainly, happy to be have a point of order if people feel that that's inappropriate or what I've done is inappropriate. So I think we have, an outline of something that's worked.
It
Yep.
did not work because you unilaterally decided that I was not allowed to speak about something. And I guess if that is what the board's preference is when it comes to agendas, then that's fine, but we should put that in writing.
Again, the duties of the chair also includes place limit, and this is paragraph 3A3, placing limits on the length of time and the content of input provided by meeting participants. So again, I
I'm not a meeting participant, I'm a member of the board.
understood. So, again, you've had the opportunity to place a number of items, on the agenda. They're on there, including this one. I don't know if there's anything, that the board wants to do. If you have a particular proposal, you can go ahead and make it.
I guess my question would be, if I were a member of the public trying to speak and you weren't allowing me to be added to the agenda, that would be illegal. Because that would, you, the government, would be restricting my ability to participate. So I'm trying to understand. I
We-
guess I just don't understand why you
So-
don't want me to talk about stuff.
So this chair has allowed, I think, a lot of public comment throughout, from the very top of the agenda and also at the very end of the agenda in terms of public comment.
I think that might be the concern, right, Paul? Because your vice chair was not allowed to add something to the agenda. I think that, at the end of the day, let's just cut to the chase. Like, that's what the deal is here. Can the vice chair decide to put something on the agenda or not?
And to be clear, you saw what I wanted to put on. It was not unreasonable things. I wanted to talk about pay scale, I wanted to talk about COLA, like those are
That's on the agenda.
last
That
time.
was last time.
We had, and you had a discussion about it. I gave you the opportunity to discuss it.
I understand, but I asked why it wasn't on the agenda, and you said because I decided that we didn't need to talk about it.
I don't,
This fits with my recollection.
well,
you
but
gotta-
ultimately, we discussed it. It was discussed.
But it wasn't
Just-
on the agenda,
think the point
so
is just
the
put it on.
public couldn't weigh in, none of you were ready to
Everybody,
discuss it?
everyone was here and it was discussed. People had an opportunity to discuss it. I told you to go ahead and, do what you needed to do in terms of the matrix. So, again, we have a policy and procedure. I think it's a good policy and procedure. I mean, if there's a proposal for another policy and procedure, I'm willing to accept that too.
I would move that any member of the select board can put anything on the agenda up to 12 hours ahead, 24 hours ahead. whatever the time.
Isn't that already stated in?
No,
No,
that's-
it's
That's
not.
the problem.
Well, it's.
Sure it is.
Yeah,
Paul says, Kleinman,
Paul
from the minutes we
decided.
just approved, Kleinman stated that he controls the agenda.
right.
So Paul said that, the fact was, I was in London, but I was actually intimately following this particular item because I thought that it set a really bad precedent. We're all equals, technically on this board.
Right,
So.
except for the chairman is not an equal.
He does,
He is an equal. I mean, he has one vote out of 5. And
Right.
like,
Okay.
he's the chair.
The
He
chair.
He has a couple of additional duties, but he's an equal in terms of.
The chair has control of the agenda. It says so right in
So
the,
can I
yeah.
continue my?
you can.
Cool, thanks. So the issue was that Letty had emailed Andrea asking for something to be added to the agenda. Andrea and Paul discussed it, and Paul unilaterally decided, no, it's not going to go on the agenda. That's the crux of what the situation is. So
And
my
and that-
motion is that we allow any member of the select board to add anything to the agenda up to whatever the time is, 24 hours before the.
Well, actually, it provides, I think it was the Friday, 12 o'clock Friday
Whatever,
before.
That's
I'm not asking it to change the time. Whatever.
Unfettered?
But that is
Without
exactly
unfettered?
what that says.
If it's a member,
then
No, it's
then why
not.
was Paul allowed to just decide not to?
No,
put-
Jim, like, no, seriously, this is a
No,
serious thing.
seriously, this is exactly what that states.
Then
Then
why-
Paul broke the rules. So it's one or the, it's black and white. It's one or the other, if
And-
you believe that.
And ultimately,
right there.
I allowed her to speak, and I ultimately allowed.
But you
I-
didn't put it on the
I-
agenda. So can we just,
I-
I've made a motion.
And my point is, ultimately, I allowed the topic to be discussed in full.
So I think the discrepancy is the interpretation of control of the agenda. My interpretation of control of the agenda is that you keep the meeting on track by agenda items, not by what goes on the agenda. That is my interpretation. Somebody else's interpretation would be something else, but that is what I interpret that as meaning.
That's fair.
So I don't think it needs to be changed, it just needs to be allowed that, I mean, unless, you know, we're looking at a 4-hour meeting, it doesn't make this
Oh,
agenda.
yeah, then push it
If
to
it
another
doesn't make
week.
this agenda, it's,
You know what,
Agendaed
and
on
I think what
the
I had
next
said to
meeting.
John at the time was, you know, I don't have a problem with that. I'm not like seeking to obstruct people from putting stuff on the agenda. So, you know, if I misspoke at that point, I let her speak, you know, afterwards to the issue. The issue was fully aired. So again, I don't really see that a change is necessary from what we already have.
So then you're in agreement that any select board member can add anything to the agenda?
If that's the interpretation of control, so be it. I don't have a problem with that.
Great, problem solved.
Great.
Next.
Dog warrant.
Are you okay, John? Dog warrants.
My dog's.
Oh, yes. Now, I think we have a public comment on that.
I agree 100% with Andy's interpretation of that. I don't see why one person would control an agenda. When I send an agenda to board members, they have the power to review and add anything that they want to the agenda. I may suggest, well, we're going to talk about that and have a respectful conversation and move that agenda item around, but I would never just delete it from an agenda. So I think Andy's interpretation of power of the agenda is exactly correct, that you can move things around on the agenda and in the order that you do them. But I think you're over-interpreting the word control. And I hope you guys could just agree that you all can put things on an agenda and that's okay.
Yeah, I think we just have.
I know.
I did think we just did.
Yep. Dog?
Dog warrants. Yep.
that time of year again. How many? How many last year? We're making progress.
You're welcome.
Yay. Should I drop my thing down to make you feel better?
I know, I feel like a little person. I'm like,
Wow.
No, there's just one warrant.
Oh,
it's just one more, and then I give it to the
Pursuant to RSA 466:14 entitled Warrants Proceedings, you're directed to proceed to collect the fees due the town of Brentwood to be turned over to the town clerk or seize an unlicensed dog for holding in an appropriate holding facility pursuant to 466:16 entitled Returns. You have until July 17, 2025 to return the warrant with a statement as to whether all unlicensed dogs in Brentwood have been seized and held under the provisions of this chapter and whether complaints have been entered against all the persons who have failed to comply with those provisions.
Moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
No.
Daphne, do you know how many of the 200 and something went to court action?
so we're not doing this for fun,
Impressive.
just to torture people. This is literally something that we are required by law to do. Even though you voted no, will you sign it?
No.
Oh, hello. Is that better? Do I have a chance to speak on two things very quickly, or do you want me to wait until other business?
How quick are they?
Very quick.
Sure.
The first one would be, we would like to have our team building that we is that what it's called, the team building meeting?
Exercise.
That we've had the last couple of years. We are not going off campus. We are going to go to the BRC on July 26th from 12 to 3, if you are okay with that, because we need a little bit of money to have hot dogs and hamburgers.
Who's invited? Who?
The town employees. So the
All?
town, the police, fire,
Yes, you can have a hot dog.
library,
Highway?
not the select board, because then that's
not-
not really team building.
No, that's fine.
And highway.
I didn't know if it was just the people
Yes.
here or if it's
Not
literally.
this building, literally town,
We're not building,
Employees.
we're not building teams,
town
is that what you're
employees.
suggesting?
No, gosh, please no.
Yeah.
You cannot have a hot dog. Well, you can bring your own hot dog, but
You can order takeout.
if you're okay with that.
Motion.
Seconded.
Aye. Any discussion?
I'm
Aye.
upset I don't get a hot dog.
I'm very sorry about that. Secondly, back in 2018, when we decided to accept credit cards, for whatever reason, the vote to say yes is not in the minutes. It was like a before and after situation. So the DRA has asked that we just ask that you re-vote that we are going to accept credit cards
Motion.
You mean for payments?
for payments, yes.
Can we just add to the motion that we accept it with a fee? We do charge a fee, correct?
The town does not charge a fee, the vendor charges a fee. The town does not get any money for the credit cards, except for whatever they're being charged. But it was just to get it in the minutes so that we can put it into our master file with the DRA.
Motion?
It's already been
Oh,
Move.
seconded.
Yep.
Yep.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Till later.
Okay.
It's a terrible chair. If anyone wants to donate a chair to the,
We could just buy one.
okay.
All right, we're going to start with some old business and re-bringing up the issue of no parking on Pine Road.
Once again, Mark Kennedy, Land Use Administrator. I have created a packet for you. I took some 11 by 17 prints of the recorded Mylars, and I placed upon them the location of said no parking signs. One is on a scale of 1 in 30, and the other's a scale of 1 in 100, so that's why the perception's a little off there on the two frontages. And a picture.
And I think what had prevented us last time from voting was that we didn't have a specific diagram to vote on, which we now have, along with an attached photo. So I will, what's that? Yeah,
No,
and-
it just-
and the measurements as well.
Yeah, because it's on the plot plan of where no parking is. That's perfect.
And I'll entertain a motion to accept the no parking signs that have been put in place.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, next old business in the packet was a update from the CPA.
Is the, just time check, it's almost 7. I don't know if we want to wait until after.
I don't see the council yet. so-
Okay. Never mind then.
Ah, there it is. So the gist of this is that Mr. Colby, I had asked him to provide a status report, which was requested. His status is that he's been through 9 months of reconciliation of the cash account for 2024. He still has to go through trial balance and make, various adjustments there. But he's almost through the end of the year in terms of reconciling the cash account for the 2024 year. He is thinking that he would be prepared for the audit to be starting in earnest by sometime around the end of next week.
It already started.
And it has already started, and that's why I said in earnest.
Oh, okay.
He had spent 13.5 hours at the time of writing this memo, which was June 16th, 2025. Is there any discussion about that or any concern?
Looks to me like he's on track and doing a good job.
I guess I just want to read this one section. I have identified numerous items that will need to be adjusted in the system so that the financial records are accurate. The items identified represent a fairly significant dollar amount of transactions. Due to this fact, I caution the usage of any financial reports from the BMSI system for any significant decision-making until the necessary entries can be made to make the necessary adjustments. So how do we operate if we can't trust BMSI? Bueller?
What does that mean? How do we operate?
It says, don't use the accounting system we have because it's not reliable.
No, it says don't use the numbers in the accounting system.
Well,
until
right.
we-
Sure,
usage
but
of
that's
any-
how we make decisions.
Right. I caution.
When we
he
say, do we
caution-
have money to do this or that?
Right, he cautioned the usage of any financial reports, and I think what he was suggesting there was that he had more work to do in terms of figuring out the trial balances and going through that.
And that we shouldn't make any purchases or commitment of monies that we weren't planning to do so anyways.
So should we rethink some of the decisions we've previously made?
No, we should not make any future decisions
Okay.
until that's the way I interpret it. That
Okay. And then the question I had was, I have identified numerous items that will need to be adjusted in the system, and he makes reference to adjustments later. Is he gonna be making those adjustments?
That was my understanding.
Okay.
Doing what we hired him.
Well, I just wasn't sure why it wasn't done yet. That's why I was, so if he's done January through September, it sounds like he hasn't done whatever those adjustments are for January through September.
probably because it's easier to go back and do them all at once and make sure they weren't made somewhere else and then have to fix it twice.
I'm not here to tell him how to do his job.
Oh, no, I just wanted to make sure it was gonna get, like, I just wanted to make sure that he was gonna do it. And then I was curious to know if we've had any applications or resumes in for the finance director job.
We've received 2. And I'm going to be interviewing, I'll be in at least one next week, so.
Okay.
So my understanding is 2 applications, and I would think that if that's all we do get, then I would suggest to Andrea that after those, interviews, we have a presentation to the board, and then we make some decisions from there in terms of what we want to do.
I think council's.
Yes.
Want to invite Mary over?
I make a motion that we go into non-public under legal. What else?
Yep. Oh, are we?
Are we done with the CPA thing or not?
Sounds like it.
Okay.
Okay.
I just didn't know.
It sounded like it too. All right, so,
Public comment, maybe?
yeah. Yep.
I can wait a few minutes.
Jim Hasher, Mohawk Lane. Just for the benefit of the public, could you explain just an example of what a reconciliation is for everybody? Because, they're going through 2024 data, and so I'm trying to understand this, as she brought up, that like, is there a concern that, if it's a number is wrong, like something was reported as hypothetically police and not fire or clerk's office, like if it's a number is like in a different bucket or something, okay, but like maybe if you could just maybe explain what this reconciliation is, and is there, because like you said, I mean, it's one thing if you're trying to say looking at budgets for next year and saying, oh, are we going from here to here when we don't know what last year's really was? Okay, but is there a concern that, like, I've always been on the assumption, with what little knowledge I have of this, is that, well, at a high level, the numbers were correct, and that, you know, we're not expending money that we don't have or anything like that. So my question is just, maybe you could just, if somebody could make a simple example or something of what these reconciliations are, so we have an idea.
It's a good question. I'm not sure that I have the scope of expertise, except to say that he's, you know, reconciling the cash accounts to make sure that those are in place. But as you say, there are adjustments and buckets of numbers from other places that need to happen. But at
But
least
it's-
in my communication with Mr. Colby, which I did have a meeting with him, he wasn't expressing, you know, any concern, you know, from a high level view. I mean, I could have him come if people feel it's necessary, but yeah.
And again, it's just more of, I think, what is the concern about? And should you be concerned, or any of us be concerned about expenditures this year based on what happened? Like, these transactions haven't been entered correctly? Because I was under the impression that that was not a concern, that, you know, we had plenty of money to pay the bills, that, you know, the budget
Yeah, I don't
that we appropriated for this year is fine, but
And
this
that's-
is the
that's
first,
my-
this is the first time I've heard someone say, uh-oh, there might be a problem with what we have this year, you know, what we're doing right now.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
not my understanding. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what sounded,
That's just what he said, so I thought.
what she read did sound that way, so,
Yeah. I think it had more to do with allocations
Okay.
between, you know, the accounts. So we have a lot of different
Sure.
accounts in the town.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
he was needing to do that kind of adjustment of allocation between accounts. At least that's my,
sure.
you know, basic understanding.
And that was my kind of what I thought was going on, and so I never was really concerned about what we were doing this year, but, okay, thank you.
Is he gonna reconcile the revolving funds as well? The revolving funds, is he gonna reconcile those?
Okay, so we're going to make a motion to go into non-public for legal under RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2E. We're also going to do the non-public for hiring at this point too? Yeah. Well, I don't know if we want to come out and go back in. So we'll also do, do a non-public for hiring under 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, small b. And I think that motion
yeah,
was
I made a
made by Letty. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Aye.
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so we'll
Can
go
we-
into non-public. at
take
this
10?
point. We could take 5 minutes, yeah. Or 10. We're gonna do the Wix situation, the Wix settlement, yeah. Yeah. No, just Doty. Just Doty for that, just the chief. Yeah. Not for. Yeah.